Glad to have you back on this segment of Engendered, and if you're just joining us, you're right on time and you made the right decision, because today we're going to give you an interesting topic that, I don't know, when I mentioned the topic earlier at the office, people were like, wow, why do you want to discuss that topic? And I got a lot of reaction, but we can't neglect it because we actually discuss everything that affects the female gender, the society, the economy at large. And today we're going to be doing something spectacular with an important guest. Pamela has been, I don't know, she has been questioning me on where I got our guest from. And we're not discriminating. So that's why we have a special guest in the studio today. Blending into it's making our studio really colorful, beautiful, you get. And Pamela said they have similar nose type. I don't know. I don't know. Okay, but before I introduce our guest today, let me just read something about our topic of discussion today. And this says, pornography constitutes about 25% of all search engine requests and is the fourth most common reason people give for going on the internet. The not so funny truth is that pornography has profound consequences for the brain and acts in many ways like a drug. So you can become an addict. You're addicted to pornography. It's possible, just like we have drug addicts. With prolonged exposure, your tolerance is increased and many are addicted. Though it is not a physical substance, it leads to same loss of control. Now, according to some reports, it states that pornography is a contributing factor to human trafficking. And to throw more light on this, we have Reverend Captain John Vanstone. He's the Anglican priest and military chaplain at Canadian Forces Base, Kingston, Ontario. You're welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. We don't have our belly. Yeah, you guys say welcome to the program.
I'm so delighted to be here.
I will compliment your nose again.
Too kind. Thank you so much.
How you doing?
Yes. Well, it is fantastic. This is my first time to Nigeria.
Wow.
First time to Africa.
Okay.
Wow.
And so I have been having a marvelous experience here as a tourist, but also working with the organization that I partner with in Canada to fight human trafficking, MECAT, Media Campaign to Halt or Against Human Trafficking. Yes, yes.
Hope you're enjoying yourself here in Nigeria. And Africa is treating you well.
Very well,
Wow.
very well.
Good
Love
to
the
hear.
food, love the
What kind of food
love
have
the
you
smells, love the culture.
What kind of food have you tried? Have you tried our jollof rice?
No.
Why?
What have I tried? Pepper soup, chicken
Pepper
pepper
soup.
pepper
Oh.
soup. So many different kinds.
How did you react to the chicken pepper soup? Was it?
It was good. It wasn't too peppery, but it was still good.
But before you leave, you need to try our jollof rice.
Nigerian
Yes.
jollof
You've not been
rice.
seeing a competition, Nigerian jollof rice.
And
You have to
Ghanaian.
try it.
Oh, I will. And you know, most Nigerians tell me what I need to try.
Okay, you still have some more time to stay here, right?
Yes. Yeah, I've got another 6 or so days.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been here about a week, so yeah, it's a nice chunk of time.
Don't worry. After the show, we'll give you a recommendation of places you should go and try some nice food.
See Abuja.
Okay, so today we're going to be discussing pornography and how it affects the female gender. You mentioned earlier that it's a contributing factor to human trafficking.
Yes.
Now, I know people hear the word pornography, but I would like you to explain to our viewers what pornography is.
Yes, that's a really good thing to ask, and there has been sort of a debate about, you know, what's art versus pornography. And not getting into a technical definition, but just to say that I think it matters what the intention of in creating the content. So it's explicit sexual content to cause a sexualized effect on the viewer.
Okay.
Right, and so that's a distinction between, of course, movies and magazines, TV shows often have sexual content in them, but that's not their sole intent,
okay.
Right? And that's where I think your quote is a fantastic place to start, because it affects the brain. It's a brain chemistry thing, just like I'll just be frank, as an Anglican priest, I come with a spirituality, and I believe first off, sexuality, male and female sexuality, is beautiful and good, and to be enjoyed and to be expressed properly. And just like all treasured things in this broken world, it can be distorted and misused. and to stimulate the brain in the wrong way, to use those same chemicals that are meant to bond to people, to just overstimulate them on their own, is very detrimental. And like you said, addictive. And it's actually worse than heroin.
Really?
Because for those are really addicted to not just porn, but sex addiction, which is a broader thing. It becomes like, for an alcoholic, to go into a bar is very dangerous. For a sex addict, their bar is 3 thoughts away.
Okay.
And so it's just a thought, so it's in them. So it's like somebody who's addicted to food, right? It's an internal need that we all have to, whether we're in a relationship where we're having sex or not, we all have good intimacy, sexual needs that need to be met, but it gets out of whack, and pornography often contributes to that out of whack experience.
Okay, have you had any personal experience with pornography since you are in this line of human trafficking?
Yes, I have. As a military chaplain, my specialty, because chaplains in the military have a variety of experiences in the Canadian Armed Forces, and mine is particularly with traumatized soldiers. And often people who are in trauma say they have complex anxiety disorders like PTSD. They want to find ways to medicate the pain, whether it be drugs or alcohol or pornography, to just feel better, to feel release. And so in the work that I do with people is to help them find a better way to feel better, to get out of that experience, that intense addiction.
Okay, so I'd like to ask another question.
Yes.
Who watches pornography? Like, what category of people? Is there a grade or age range of people that watch pornography, or is it open to all?
Yes, that's a really good Google question. I can't give statistics, but I just know that it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and that in Canada, it is the age of people being introduced to pornography because of the proliferation of media is going down. So you're getting not just teenagers, but preteens, 7, 6-year-olds viewing
6-year-olds.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And there's forms of pornography. I mean, the most abase form, of course, is child pornography, which is illegal, but it's out there.
They use children to do it.
Yes. And though that's the most, I would say, the most heinous form of pornography and human trafficking is using children.
Okay, is there a particular way pornography affects the female gender? I know it's both the male and the female that maybe watch and also engage in this thing, but is there a particular way it affects the female gender?
Special.
Yes, I feel a little bit, given my maleness,
Does it matter?
a little bit not an expert in that way,
Okay.
but I just am becoming aware that it has tended to be men who get statistically more men getting addicted, but the rise of more women getting addicted to pornography because it's becoming more advanced. Like the techniques for causing people to be aroused is more intense. So it's kind of like, having, say, a drink. People have gateway drugs. So you try a drink, maybe then smoke a joint, have some marijuana, then maybe try some cocaine, and then have heroin. Well, every instance of those, there's a pornographic form, and the danger, the perversion, the extremity of kind of practices is the farther along. And people who start here, just like with drugs and alcohol, don't think they'll end up here, but can. And then often and then often will act out and do abusive behavior. If the addiction just keeps going, it's interesting to note that in America anyway, I've heard it said that all serial killers were addicted to pornography. That there's something it's violent. Like it misuses sexuality to make people objects. Men and women are objectified. So that in that way, it kind of accelerates what already happens to women in many societies. I'm gathering that is as prolific in Nigeria, but in Canada, the instance of sexual harassment in the workplace is very high. The Me Too movement, right, out of North America was to, rise up and have a voice against the fact that you can't do this to us. You can't talk like this to us. Well, that objectification in a kind of office setting, I think behind it has a similar kind of biochemistry as it does to a pornographic viewer. It's lust driven. It's not seeing a person, it's seeing an object purely as pleasure. And that is the horror against both male and female dignity.
Okay.
Now, what is the general danger of this pornography to the society?
Oh, so many dangers. So many dangers. And one of them we've already talked about is just the abuse, because you're trying to get more viewership, more money, right? Yeah. That you make more toxic content. And it's really a click of a button, and so that we don't need more things to be addicted to.
We already have enough.
We already have enough addictive stuff. But that's, addictions cause treatment. All that is, it's in itself a massive thing, is just to have another addiction to fight. The medical and psychological and spiritual resources required to help people get out of that is in itself a whole argument against. But then there's just the pain of the people themselves who are either trafficked, like literally held against their will, or psychologically or spiritually held against their will to perform these things on film and on camera, is also damaging to them. Very, very hurtful. It's destructive as well to male-female intimacy. It's if the experience of trying to be genuinely intimate with someone, and let me back up and just say, pornography is a form of false intimacy. That's why it's so intoxicating, is because it's easy, it's quick, it doesn't require the risk that real intimacy requires.
Okay, what do you say about people that say, because I hear people say things like,
yes,
my partner, I use it to spice up our relationship. Yes. Some people say they use it to learn new styles according to them. And some people are of the opinion that if you have a partner, it is okay to actually watch porn. Yes. How would you react to that?
That's a good, do I have to? No, I'm not here to judge people, couples, and I think there's lots of great resources, healthy resources, about exploration of sexuality, books like never before. We have great resources that are healthy. For me, if I was a pastor and a couple came to me and said this, what I would say is, I would just want to be curious with them about why they need an external stimulant to feel close to them as a couple. That the real, and that it threatens the safety of their togetherness if they're introducing other bodies that they're looking at. How do I know that you're not more stimulated by the person you're looking at on the screen as opposed to me. And part of the safety of that intimacy is for me, is the monogamy of it, is the security of one-to-one, not having. So again, it's a false intimacy. It's seductive because it's so arousing and it's so exciting, can be, for people to watch. But it's kind of like, well, I don't have a great analogy. I was going to say candy, right? Candy, it tastes good, but if you eat too much, but I don't want to say candy because some candy is good. No porn, I don't think, is good for us because of that objectifying element and false intimacy.
So in general, you're trying to say there's nothing positive about pornography.
Again, I'm not speaking for the Canadian military.
Okay.
I'm not speaking for the Anglican Church.
Okay.
I'm speaking just as somebody who works with people who are traumatized and trying to help them get right down to the core of their brokenness. And this is a distraction. This is to get them to be really intimate. In the best way is to open up and release their pain. And so that will affect if they're in a partnering relationship, a romantic relationship, their capacity to open up is critical. And many people use porn to not have to do that. But that's part of the joy and adventure of human sexuality, is being in a safe risk space. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Okay, now can you now give us in details how does pornography fuel human trafficking?
How does it? Sorry.
How does it fuel human trafficking? How does it contribute to human trafficking? Yeah.
Well, many of the actresses on screen are coerced.
Okay.
Either because they have been physically removed from their scenario, and they may not look like they're being forced, but they've been groomed. They've been either given drugs and gotten addicted to drugs, and then just forced to perform on that. So there's that way of human trafficking, but then there's also just the draw of people outside of what tends to be more vulnerable countries. So if I may say, as an outsider, Nigeria is a more vulnerable country because there are the levels of poverty that many people want better for themselves and their families, and will be taunted by an offer. Come to we've got this to offer you. And they make a false promise, and then the person gets there, and they're trapped, and they say, well, you don't have any money now. They use it to lure people in, and so they may not actually have them physically chained to a wall, but the person feels like, well, my family's counting on me to pay them money. The only way I can do that is to perform. I better make it look good. And that's very, very common and rampant.
Okay, you've seen these people one-on-one, and what was the story like, the experience that you have to share?
Yes, I have to say that my one-on-one experience, my contribution to human trafficking is more on the awareness piece, and helping me, Capt. I had the great privilege of being there at their safe house last week, where they've got several girls that they call treasures, and it just fills your eyes with tears to see these beautiful young girls who have been rescued from human trafficking. But the story is horrific. The stories are of being required to give the most intimate part of yourself away to a total stranger. And the idea of that then now being used to sell to other people. It's just, you can feel the weight of it just as I talk about it. Like, it just, presses the person down as if they are, may I say, SHIT, right? They're just treated like utter, and they feel that way, and they feel ashamed. They feel, it's just brutality, human brutality at its worst.
Now, let's go back to pornography.
Yes.
It's really very, very around this time. It has gone rampant, and there's no positivity from it, just like you said. Do you think it can be eradicated from the society?
These are such great questions, and I'm shy to speak, again, except other than what I feel God has given me to say from my humble perspective, that of course, let's fight against it. It's a huge, massive industry that needs to be fought at many, many levels. And one of those levels that is very, very hard to get traction in, and this is very simple, you'd think it's very straightforward, is to merely get laws passed in countries that say, in order to enter this site, you have to be 18.
Okay.
It is very hard to get that simple, that seems like a no-brainer. It is very hard to get that law passed. Why? Because there are very powerful people that want to prevent that, because they're making a lot of money. And if you get people addicted early, it's like the tobacco industry used to make cigarettes more and more addictive, and they would keep focus the advertising on children, young people. If you can get them addicted early, then you've got your steady income. Same with pornography.
Okay, at this point...
This is a happy topic. We do have good things happening in Canada. But I'm really delighted that you're taking the time to sit on this topic, to walk around it, because like me, there's just been a naivete about it. But then you look behind it and go, whoa, this is not just innocent. Let's explore sexuality. It's not that simple. It's not that simple.
Okay, at this point we'll go on a short break.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, viewers, we'll be going on a short break, and when we return, Engendered continues. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the program. If you've just joined us, this is Engendered, and it's coming to you live from our Abuja studios here on KAFTAN television. And we've been discussing a very important topic with our guests, and the topic is pornography. Now, before we went on that short break, you've said a lot about this topic. Can you tell us the causes of this pornography? Why do people go into it? Why are there industries for pornography?
Yes. It's, again, a multi-layered answer to that question. Yeah. And I think I'll just start by saying that there is, it revolves around this need for closeness. And it's a proliferation or a way of commodifying intimacy. But again, it's false intimacy. So everybody wants to feel connected. Everybody wants to not be alone. In many countries now, we're getting ministers of government, ministers of loneliness. Like their whole profile is to help people, particularly in the West. Isn't it fascinating, just as an aside, that we live in such a media-driven world now, with more ways to connect than ever in the history of humanity, and we have an epidemic of loneliness. And that loneliness is, people want out of that. I think that's true. We all are designed, I believe God created us to be in community, real close, intimate, safe, bonded community, whether it involves sexual, a monogamous sexual relationship or not. Pornography provides such an intoxicating experience for the viewer that they feel not alone for a while. Very similar to, I think, the euphoria that a drug abuser would feel. They feel connected in some way. And so that is, I think, one of the biggest causes. Also, I'm a Christian minister, and I think that there's actually evil going on that wants to damage and hurt the core of human dignity. And what better way to hurt human dignity than hurt the most sacred spot of humanity, which is their connection with their spirit, mind, and body all in one. That's where sexuality is. All of us right in there, in a concentrated way. And if evil can damage that, then it's done generational damage, and we see that.
Like, for example, you mentioned earlier that so these girls that are trafficked,
Yes.
the traffickers use the girls to
Yes.
create videos
Yes.
to upload on the porn site.
Yes.
So can you give us further details on how that is done?
I don't like, you mean how they lure the girls there?
Yes, and how
In the
they
first
use
place?
them for the videos.
I see. It's my understanding. My connecting partner here said not to say this, but I'm going to say it. I'm not an expert on this topic. But the luring happens again so much with false promises,
Okay.
right? And the promise for fame, often it's modeling agencies.
Okay.
So that here you can become a model, you can make good money, you can be on the cover of a magazine, and then it just subtly or not so subtly drifts as they get them out of their safe, structured environment near family, near their own country, into a vulnerable spot where they have no one, that they can then coerce them and force them. Look, you're on your own if you don't do this, and then there would I'm extrapolating. I'm assuming that they would do coaching, right, and train them in some way.
Okay. At what point would you say that someone is addicted to pornography? Because somebody can say, I only maybe watch it a few times and they don't think they're addicted. So from your own perspective, at what point will you think that somebody is addicted to pornography?
Right. Well, I don't think it's healthy, even if, just like, for me, I don't think, hard drugs, even if you took cocaine once, I don't think that's good for your body. I don't think that pornography in any dosage is good, whether or not one's addictive to it. But like any addiction, it would be compulsive, right? It would be, spending hours at a time surfing the web, spending money, even though it's at the detriment of my family. I'm just still spending money. I just need whatever that's giving me. I just need that. It just disrupts your whole life so that you are doing things that you do not want to do.
Okay, now what steps do you think an addicted individual should take if they want to stop the addiction?
And that's really a great point. Under all these lights, there is hope. There is light. That there are now more than ever both secular and religious programs and offerings to help people who are addicted to porn. And there's more trained, specialized. There's whole school of psychotherapy who are sex addicted therapists who have extensive hours of high-level training to understand the complex reasons why someone would have started this in the first place and how they can get out of it. So I think that just as many people started porn on the click of a mouse, you can stop porn by the click of a mouse. Just point your engine elsewhere. Also, critical thing is to, just like somebody who is trying to stop a drug, they need to stop their access to the junk, right? And so there's lots of great Covenant Eyes. There's other internet resources to help people put them on their devices so they get filtered, so they don't get pop-ups. They don't have to worry about those temptations. And also with that is finding safe, helpful people. Like a safe friend, even if they don't struggle with this, a safe person who you know is trustworthy and can handle your struggles. This is really important to get it right. It needs to be a safe person, not just anybody, but to get somebody alongside of you. Hey, I need to talk about this. Can you kind of help me? And wouldn't any good friend be happy to help, even just to listen? It's fantastic. On the break, we were thinking just about the false intimacy piece and just the causes of human trafficking and pornography. I just wanted to make the linkage to the Johns, which I'm not great with being called as I'm John. Anyway, those who are making use of trafficked women, and they often don't even realize that the women and boys or girls and men that they are going to have sex with are trafficked. So they may not even know, right? But that comes often. They are addicted to porn. They want to enact what they see. It's not enough anymore to just view and act out on one's own. They want a physical person. And so that's another way that this conundrum of human trafficking and pornography intersect.
Okay. Now, what do you think, what steps do you think individuals and this pornography industry should take to avoid this exploitation, to avoid this abuse in the industry?
Well, I would like them to just stop. So, that's the best way.
Well,
but I think that to be, if it's really consenting adults, and I find that that's even complicated, because often people who give their bodies away in these ways are often doing it out of really abused. They're not able to get to the bottom of their pain because they're enacting out. They're trying to get relief from their pain through their acting out, and it's a whole field called trauma bonding, and so I worry about that. Even saying that a consenting person or a sex worker who is on their own volition doing it. So, okay, if there is that, if they are truly on their own, I would just want it to be legal for only those who are, I think 18 is too young, but I think that those laws should be put in place, and there should be much stricter control of the internet. It's way too accessible to, in a click, you're suddenly seeing not just like an image of a beautiful person, but hardcore, like violent, like a woman being completely objectified by 4 or 5 men around her. It's like, no one should see that, in my opinion, but certainly not an underage. That damages their psyche. It damages how they view sexuality. It damages their gender.
Okay, you mentioned earlier that sometimes children are used for pornography.
Yes.
Now, I would want to know, the laws, are these traffickers or are the people that carry out this act, are they caught?
That's a great question. That's very insightful, because many people don't see that is, they're sort of they're the villain, right? But the villain has a backstory too. The traffickers often come from abused backgrounds, often are coerced by other people. I mean, human trafficking and pornography are multi-billion-dollar industries, and they have very powerful people behind them, and are often organized crime behind them. And often that means the traffickers, the pimps, the local pimps, are being held and controlled against their will to hold those who are actually doing the performing against their will.
Okay, let's
It's
divert.
very, yeah. So thank you for taking on this topic. I know it's not a happy topic, but it's a topic that we can feel good about fighting together. Whether or not you're a person of faith or not, can't we all see that hurting our youngest, the youngest, making our youngest members of our society vulnerable to images way before they should ever even know that that kind of thing even exists in the world? Can't we all gather around and feel good about fighting that?
I want to divert a little.
Yes,
Okay,
yes, yes.
what is your thought on masturbation? I get to find out that yes, if you check it, they have kind of similarities.
Yeah, they are
when you
linked.
watch too much of pornography,
Yeah.
you see yourself masturbating.
Yes.
What is your thought on it? Does it have any kind of mental? Does it affect someone mentally?
Yes. Yes, and these are really great questions. I'm saying that because I'm a little bit shy, again, to wade into this topic, especially as a Christian minister, because there are different opinions and biblical interpretations
Yeah.
about masturbation. I would say just a couple of things. And I'm very shy to do it, but I'll do it. Here I am. Masturbation, I think that God gave us our bodies, and our bodies are good, and to understand them and explore them sexually as we grow is normal and healthy. And to take the use of our sexuality to the place of using it to overcome feelings of inadequacy, to overcome feelings of shame or aloneness, that's where it gets dangerous. And that is, it's very much the same. Masturbation definitely can become its own addictive thing.
Okay. Now, in your own fight against human trafficking, what
Yes.
do you think are the measures that we're not putting in place that would help us fight human trafficking?
Oh gosh, there's so many. There's so many measures that we could be better at putting in place. I mean, that it has to be both. It has to be at the highest levels. It has to be cooperation with governments and cross embassies. Like I had a great conversation last week with the Finnish embassy, linking me to the Canadian embassy, and possibly doing some more awareness around the linkage of Nigeria to Canada, because it's not. There's like webs of connection all across the planet of traffickers, and they're always moving because they evade the governments and evade the police. So that working at that high level of policy, of just protective policies, to eradicate the vulnerabilities, right? So to eradicate poverty, eradicate illiteracy. These things are right connected to human trafficking, because education, not having enough food, you just don't know what you don't know. And then suddenly you're in a situation where you're being controlled. And so that brings it down to the personal level, like people just rising together in small ways with MeCat, or there's many organizations doing great work in different creative ways, both secular and religious, both all kinds of different faiths coming together to fight this scourge against all of our human dignity. And so those personal things that we can do.
Okay, as we round up on the show, do you have any final word for us, for our viewers, about human trafficking, about pornography, and your experience from your fieldwork?
Yes.
I would like you to just stage it. Maybe you talk to individuals, talk to families, then government, then the society, so everybody can know the roles they have to play to help reduce the pornography.
Yes. Wow. Well, for for the individual who is struggling with pornography addiction, masturbation addiction, there's help, and that you can get free. That's what I'd want to say.
Okay.
And you can find help to get free. For the families who are just allowing children to use mobile phones without any kind of shepherding of that, don't do that. It's dangerous. Not just because of online predators, that's another form of human trafficking, that the way it starts, but because of just the images out there can scar children. Image of what healthy sexuality could be, should be. So that's a message for families. For community networks, don't fight with each other, fight together. Find ways that we can work in common to fight this evil. And there's lots of local ways. One of the ways that I do that in the local churches, I'm a full-time military chaplain, so I just preach at different churches, and I work with a group in Kingston, Ontario called FAST 101 that's fighting against sex trafficking. And so amazingly, over the last 10 years, the awareness has grown to the point that in our police system, we have a constable dedicated to victims of sex trafficking.
Okay.
And so our organization creates little, it's very simple, victim bags. So when I preach, I'll share a message of how a local church can just fill a victim bag so that is given to the constable, who then takes it when they are called in, because these are often unsafe environments. They need a police person to address it, right? Because you've got traffickers who aren't happy that a victim's getting free and all of that. So they take the bag that we provide, and that provides an immediate trust to somebody who has been deeply shattered, who has no trust in anybody. And that victim bag would have just some basics, soap and, just something to make them feel good, a new bit of clothes. And so the local church feels good, they can contribute money to that. They know that they're contributing to this. The police is contributing to this, FAST 101. So just like there's a network of evil, there can be a network of good.
Right.
And then to the governments, to the higher levels, policies and people to prevent and fight.
Okay, thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you. It was really insightful. The highlight for me, you said as far as there's a network for evil, there should be a network for good. So I would advise our viewer out there, be among this network of evil, of good. Network of good.
Okay, thank you so much for your time.
Much.
And it's an interesting thing you're doing, because sometimes it's not everybody that has interest in what you're doing. Some people neglect it.
Yeah.
They see it happening around them, but they turn a blind eye to it. And it's really alarming that most of the time, or sometimes, these people in the pornography are not doing it out of their free will. They are being coerced to do it, and their videos are shared online without them knowing. It's possible that someone is trafficked from Nigeria, and a family member in Nigeria here sees their child's video on a porn site. Imagine how hurtful and disgraceful that can be. Thank you so much for sharing with us. Thank you
for your
so
brave interest in the topic.
You made it really interesting.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, and as much as we know that the internet is good for us, there are also bad sides to it. So please, do well if you have children that are staying with you. If you have children with you, please do well to monitor what they're doing with their gadgets. Don't just give them a free. I know we have a lot of people of the opinion of I have freedom to do whatever I want to do, but please guard that child so they don't fall into the wrong hands. Sometimes I notice that even human trafficking might not even happen just because of poverty, or because of someone's naiveness to getting to find out something. I want to know, I want to discover by myself, and you fall into a trap that you can come out of. So please, as much as the internet is good, it can also be bad. Let's not turn a blind eye to it. If you see it happening next door, raise an alarm. If you see it happening to your neighbor's child, raise an alarm. If you are a perpetrator of this act, please turn around today and stop doing this to the humanity. And that's all we can take on today's episode of Engendered. Do well to join us next time for an interesting episode. I remain Chidinma Ufomadu.
Do not forget, always live for humanity. I am Pamela Ajaero. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, nice one.
Thank you so much.